And then he gives some other indications, the dangers of this genie, basically a good genie, when it's unleashed and abused. One of these stories is an interesting one. It said that Musa alayhi salam was once sitting in company when the shaitan came up to him wearing a cloak. When he drew near to him, he took this off and set it aside. Then he said, "Peace be upon you, Musa." Musa asked him who he was, and he replied, "I am shaitan." "Qatalak Allah." God slay you. Moses said, "What brings you here?" And he answered, "I've come to greet you in view of your great rank in the sight of Allah." "What was it that I saw you wearing?" he asked, and he replied, "A cloak with which I snatch away the hearts of the descendants of Adam." The sitr, hijab. "What is it then?" Moses asked, "that a man does which enables you to prevail over him?" And he replied, "He becomes pleased with himself and considers that he has many good deeds to his credit and forgets his sins. Now I would warn you against 3 things. Never be alone with a woman who is not lawful for you, for never does a man do so without having me, not my companions, as his companion, so that I tempt them both with one another. Never make a vow to Allah without fulfilling it, and never prepare something to give as charity and then fail to give it, for never does a man do so without having me, not my companions, as his companion, so that I prevent him from giving it at a later time." So here he indicates, and it comes first in this list of 3 things, that this principle of khalwa is of momentous importance. We might translate it as illicit seclusion. Man and a woman alone together, and they're never alone together, the shaitan is the third. Invariably, inevitably, unless there is a mahram, or marriage relationship between the two. Here, shaitan himself is saying, "Yep, I'm there." However confident they may feel of their own superiority and virtue, lack of sin, he is nonetheless there. He's going to tempt them with each other. And were this principle only to be understood, there would be a lot more happily married people in the world today. Because zina, which Allah describes as fahishatan sabila, an obscenity and an evil way, begins with just innocent moments. It never begins as zina, it always starts somewhere, and then a kind of process of nuclear escalation sets in until that's it. And khalwa, the idea of illicit seclusion, is really regarded as laughable in today's world. It's what everybody's after. They all want a solitude à deux. It's what the world craves. And to suggest that it's inappropriate is very strange, but they are starting to realize in a number of American high schools now, the high school regulations specify that if a student comes to see a teacher in his room, you have to leave the door open because of the endless harassment suits and other catastrophes that have taken place again and again. In the army and the navy, they're now beginning to wake up to Muslims' self-evident point that if you put servicemen and servicewomen together in close proximity, particularly in a combat situation, calamities will ensue. The ridiculous instructions issued to the Marines during the Gulf War, whereby they were told about how they should change their battle dress under a blanket. It's kind of nonsense. And the ship that they sent out, the auxiliary vessel, during the Gulf War, that had to be sent back again when 1/5 of the female crew members reported pregnancies. Never mind the other things that took place. This was where they got it wrong and they got pregnant. Had to be sent back. They called it the Love Boat. Germaine Greer talks about it in her new book, which is a good book. And this is inevitable. Khalwa leads to this. So will we learn Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib once said, Satan never despaired of destroying any previous prophet by means of women. Now what he means here is not women as women, because women were made beloved to the prophets, but women in terms of a public sexual presence.